No, don't do that. Oh.
All right, can we, everyone else is ready? I hope. Okay. My name is Dennis Speed, and on behalf of the LaRouche Political Action Committee, I'd like to welcome you here today. I'm going to start today with a statement which has just been released by Mr. LaRouche. It's entitled, "Put Obama Under Lock and Key to Avert Immediate Danger of Nuclear War." Lyndon LaRouche today reiterated with added urgency his previous warning that U.S. President Barack Obama is on a determined path toward nuclear war and must be removed from office immediately. The warning comes in response to the escalation of Obama's ongoing nuclear confrontation policy towards Russia, as exemplified by the shooting down of a Russian jet over Syria by NATO member and U.S. ally Turkey. The Turkish action could only have occurred with the blessing of Obama. LaRouche's warnings are underscored by assessments of security experts in the United States, yet there is a foolish reluctance among these experts to demand the one remedy that can pull the world back from the threat of nuclear war, removing Obama from control of the U.S. nuclear forces by impeachment or the activation of the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The latest warning about possible imminent nuclear war, published in Politico magazine by a former nuclear missile launch officer by the name of Bruce G. Blair. The article entitled, quote, "Could U.S.-Russia tensions go nuclear?" In this article, Blair points to the Obama administration's launch-on-warning policy and the shortening of the response time for making a decision about launching nuclear forces. He states that this puts the world on a nuclear hair trigger more dangerous than during the Cold War. Blair warns, quote, "That's especially true since the public does not realize just how little time exists for our leaders to make a decision to use nuclear weapons, even today. And if anything, the atmosphere has become even more hair trigger with the threat of cyber warfare. A launch order is the length of a tweet. Missile crews, in turn, transmit a short stream of computer signals that immediately ignite the rocket engines of many hundreds of land-based missiles. For the United States, this takes 1 minute. As a former nuclear missile launch officer, I personally practiced this hundreds of times. We were called Minutemen. U.S. submarine crews take a little longer. They can fire their missiles in 12 minutes. Blair further elaborates, and he goes on, I'm not going to read all of it. Given the 11 to 30-minute flight times of attacking missiles, nuclear decision-making under launch on warning is extremely rushed, emotionally charged, and pro forma, driven by checklists. I describe it as the rote enactment of a prepared script. In some scenarios, after only a 3-minute assessment of early warning, the U.S. president receives a 30-second briefing on his nuclear response options and their consequences. He then has a few minutes, 12 at most, more likely 3 to 6, to choose one of those options. That's the end of the quote. In that context, Obama's deployment of U.S. and allied forces against Russia can only be seen as an escalation toward nuclear conflict. For example, the author Blair cites the deployment of U.S. Aegis destroyers in the Black Sea, armed with cruise missiles that could strike Moscow in minutes, or the deployment of U.S. strategic bombers flying toward Russia. This in turn forces Russia into an escalatory response. Blair asks, quote, "Do U.S. leaders understand that the Russians may fear a decapitation threat is emerging, and that this threat may be the underlying driver raising the stakes for Russia to the level of an existential threat, warranting preparations for the use of nuclear weapons? I doubt they do." The frightening conclusion that Blair does not draw, however, is that U.S. President Barack Obama does know and intends to create an existential crisis for Russia and thus bring the world to the brink of thermonuclear war. Since the beginning of Barack Obama's presidency, LaRouche has warned that Obama is a narcissistic killer. Everything that Obama has done since has proven LaRouche right. One need only to look at Obama's assumption of the role of global executioner, presiding over the regular Tuesday sessions which he personally decides the kill list for U.S. drone attacks, or his confrontational behavior towards Russia in the wake of the Turkish downing of the Russian fighter jet. There is no time or room for a long debate on this matter. Obama's nuclear war provocation poses a threat to the existence of the human race. He must be removed now. A single congressman can initiate impeachment proceedings. Responsible officials within the presidency can initiate the 25th Amendment on the basis that a president intending to provoke nuclear war is no longer fit for office. The American people must now heed LaRouche's warning, remove Obama now. And that is the conclusion of the statement. So, Lynn, I'd like to ask, do you wish to make any further remarks before we begin?
No, I think what we've said so far on the record, when people assimilate what has been just presented to them, is enough warning for them to pay attention.
Yes. I'd just like to say, on my own part, when you come to the microphone, come and ask questions. We had a bit of an incident last week of someone filibustering New Left style. And we would not only appreciate it, we're going to demand that we stay on topic. We realize that this confrontation with reality might be a bit much for some of the people, some of you who are here for the first time in particular. But let's go and let's confront reality. So let's have our first questioner.
Thank you.
Ah.
Hi. Good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche.
Good afternoon.
This is Jessica from Brooklyn. What I want to say has to do with your latest writing, where you said that we must, when we go to interventions or when we go to these events, I'm particularly concerned about that. When we go to events where we are intervening into a situation where there's an audience, and sometimes the audience is pretty intelligent, sometimes they're not, but we're intervening into the situation where the panel is talking nonsense. And you're saying to humiliate and degrade those people who refuse to say the truth and get the audience to think about educating themselves. I think I got that right. I want to say an incident that happened, and then I'd like you to talk a little more about how we or give us ideas about how to actually do that, what we should do as activists in those situations. I went to a meeting called the Important East-West Committee this past week, and they had a panelist of people who were talking about Russia being our ally in the past, things that need to be done to bring us into cooperation with Russia now. They talked all about how they knew that Obama had done certain things that were not quite right. Putin had introduced a process of fighting ISIS. Obama really did not sit down with him and go through the things that needed to be done. This is what they're saying. They knew that there were Nazis in the Ukraine. They knew that regime change had taken place. They also knew that a peace process must take place, cooperation must happen. So they said a lot of things that are absolutely true. They also talked about the 50 or so troops that were sent into Syria, and Obama maybe should not have done that. And the last thing that they said that really kind of pissed me off, excuse the expression, they said that the strategic intent of Putin was in question. So when I got a chance to speak, I said, The strategic intent of Obama is what is in question. And Obama has done these things which you have said, and yet you still haven't seen that you are supposed to impeach him. You're still dancing around talking about how you're going to persuade him. Well, what are you going to do? We're going to persuade him to do better. We're going to talk to him about coming into cooperation with Putin. And I said, well, the thing that I see as the president, you act like he's just a man. He's just Obama. He may be cute. He may play basketball, you know, all these things. But we're talking about the presidency, the leader of the United States of America. So what we really should do when we're talking about our president and not some guy who you'd like to persuade to do something is impeach him. So that I challenge the panel to impeach Obama, and I tell the audience we must impeach him. So I hadn't even realized at the time that I talked about his little basketball thing that Bill Bradley was on the panel. So I found out later, and then I had a good laugh. Okay, but you know, I have been told that that type of thing where you strike them and humiliate them and degrade them and make them think about their lives and also reach the audience. So if you could talk about how we can do more of that, what is the strategy for that? How we as activists have to make that happen and change people's minds through humor, or if you can get that in, and challenge them to really think on both the panel and the audience.
It will not work unless you can strike a blow which terrifies them, not in the sense of terrorizing them, but prompting them to realize that they have no option to live if they don't act on it. Okay. And that's the only way it works. But of course, the people who are going to make the argument have to present a competent case for the argument. They have to point out the initial facts which have to be considered. They have to make a conclusive argument, which people will recognize as being a conclusive argument. Otherwise, it don't work. And therefore, people who are say maybe, people do not have much of a short period of lifespan. And as people who really can come frankly to the point of decision, who are the only ones who are likely survivors in a struggle like this.
Okay, so we still have to hit them with the truth of the matter. And at this point, since it's so crucial, we have to reach the terror inside them to make them think that something has to be done right now.
Yeah, and I can deliver any number of accurate messages which will go right directly to that point. My list of indictments of Obama may not be completed, but believe me, it's immense.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Lynn. I want to pick up where Jessica left off. We were together at this meeting on Monday night at NYU. And I appreciate what she's getting at, and I raise this in part for the audience, for the assembled here, because what she's done is exemplary in terms of what we need our growing pool of the LaRouche Party, of LaRouche activists in New York to do. Suzanne put together a roster for this week of about 30 or 40 more possible interventions. And I take your emphasis of a few days ago when you said we have to move to humiliate Obama and to denounce everyone who protects Obama within the Congress or within the institutions or within the population. And this has to be done now, not 2 weeks from now, because the dynamic strategically is in flux. What struck me in this meeting, I mean, what I'm getting at in this regard is that our army here, our activists, have to take immediately greater and greater responsibility. What struck me is the authority which we've got when we come before these poobahs, these great authorities. I made a mistake when I went right up to the microphone first as soon as they made their presentations, and because I gave them too much credit. I was working off of their appearance in the Congressional Forum a couple of weeks earlier, before John Conyers, Walter Jones, and others, where we were extremely happy that these guys, two former ambassadors, former Senator Bradley, Stephen Cohen, the Russian expert, and so on, they appeared before the Congress and they said to the Congress, look, we're facing war with Russia, a new Cold War. This can become nuclear war, and they invoked the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so I began and said, this is very important what you've done. However, if the implication of a new Cold Wars can become hot wars. A hot war with Russia is nuclear war, nuclear World War III. Is it not time to invoke the constitutional remedy to remove Obama before that occurs? Is it not time for the United States to join with the BRICS countries and get rid of British imperial geopolitics so as to avoid war? And the response from these guys, one of them, Ambassador Vanden Heuvel, said, look, what you're raising on impeachment is important. We do have to contain the executive branch. But Cohen proceeds to say, as Jessica mentioned, Cohen says, we're not going to impeach. We'll try to persuade Obama. And Bradley said, why are you attacking Obama? He's much better with the Russians than Clinton and Bush. And so on and so forth. And so we approached Cohen at the end and said, wait a second, you're talking about a new Cold War. You know where that's going. And we said, if it's a hot war with Russia, that's nuclear war. We said, what does that mean? He said, nuclear war. And yet he would not touch the question of going after Obama in the way that you've done over these years. So I'm saying it's crucial for people here to recognize the quality of authority, the unique authority which we have earned over these years and which we bring into this Manhattan Project. But otherwise, my real question to you is, insofar as these guys who might be among the best people, Cohen says, I'm an American patriot for national security. I mean, they're serious people from the Roosevelt outlook and so on, and yet they would not go there on the Obama question or the BRICS question. So my question is, any elaboration you can give to all of us in terms of really escalating against them over these days ahead?
Obama weapon, get this thing, Obama's weapon is terror of the victims. The victims include people who are prominent officials of the U.S. government and associated with similarly qualified credentials. They are deadly afraid that they are the next one to be killed. Now, all you have to do to understand why people are afraid of what Obama's rage might be is already shown in the way he has killed people en masse from week to week throughout his career. He's a mass murderer of representatives of Congress or anybody else who gets in his way. You have newspapers which are afraid of Obama. The New York Times is terrified by the very voice of Obama. The leading members of the New York Times are terrified of doing something which really strongly offend Obama. Therefore, you've got two things. You've got the choice of giving in to Obama in order to be killed, or to be killed by Obama in any case. So therefore, when you're in a war like that, you don't worry about whether you're in danger or not. What you have to do is put the cause of the problem into effective danger, which means Obama has to be removed forcibly from office. And that is the only thing that will impress the members of Congress to stand up against Obama. That's where we are. You cannot win this fight unless you are willing to play with the right marbles. And most people are not prepared to understand the problem of the right marbles. We can do it. Obama hates me probably more than any other person on this planet. And my advice is, I think, the best advice available. He's going to try to kill us, but we're going to get him first if he tries to make an action. We'll remove him from office. We'll put him in a comfortable place where he can be tortured by just looking at the walls.
Good.
Hi, Lynn. It's Alvin here in New York. On the Thursday call, time wouldn't allow me to, after my report on an intervention, raise what I want to talk with you about now. And it's something that occurred to me on Wednesday. You get reports, you have a sense of what's being done here in Manhattan as something that should echo throughout the country. As one organization, and I've been fairly involved in that. But after it's funny how you think you know something and you think you're doing something, and then something happens to tell you that you're actually not. And that, to me, is what the unprovoked attack of Turkey against the Russian jet did. Because I realized that while we're doing some good things, I personally that have been dancing around the attack that Obama has deserved for years, and merely reference and not lead with it. And so it's not, and that doesn't work. You've been calling this all along, but it's not until I really felt those missiles on my butt that I started to realize that, and I don't think I'm special. I think this is going on in other places with other people that are otherwise doing good things, but are not confronting this. My entire tone and conversation with any contacts that I have since then are being directed at that in no uncertain terms. As far as interventions go, I haven't had too much problem being sarcastic and humiliating. I kind of like that. But when it comes to talking to people, when it comes to actually, I've been dancing, I've been soft on this. And this was before I read your last brief statement in that leaflet, which really helped to tie it into how people think. That I'm not just beating them up, but I'm trying to provoke them to actually think about something seriously. So that's something that occurred to me, and I wanted to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I can say something which maybe scares some people, not by intimidation, but simply by telling them the facts of things, of the situation that we have. And this has always been the case of mankind. See, the problem is, and I've stated this on a number of occasions, and I would strike it more emphatically on this occasion because we're at a very crucial point. Obama has brought the issue of war, of thermonuclear war, to occur simultaneously with a matter of seconds under his program. And it will be a global war, and it will be a matter of seconds. Be a matter of extermination on a global scale. Now, what are you going to do? You are afraid of being attacked when the guy you're up against has those kinds of policies, those kinds of commitments? What happens? See, the point is, mankind is often in military affairs. Members of the United States have been killed in great numbers in the First World War, the Second World War, and some other conditions which came up more locally. And these people have laid down their lives. Why did they lay down their lives? It was because they had a sense of commitment, a personal commitment, not to be a coward, not to be a traitor, not to be an abstainer from the defense of humanity. And so therefore you have to take, in this kind of situation, you have to take the text as it is. That if you're going to fight this enemy, you're going to go fight against him all the way. You're going to fight against him all the way. And count on the number of survivors to maintain the cause for which you have fought. This was the kind of thing that happened in World War I and World War II. The idea was the nation would survive even if some of the people gave their lives to make that possible. You're in such a situation now. It's a different tune. It's a different note. But it's the same issue. It's the same principle. And the best chance is if you have the guts to force the members of Congress and other officials to exert their guts in dumping Obama is the best defense you could possibly ever enjoy.
Thanks, Lynn.
Good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche. This is Stephen from New York, and recently I just went and watched the movie Drone, and I have a few comments and questions. First, just an overview of the movie. It was appalling. They recruit teenagers from a young age to join the drone program from video game internet cafes. The designer of the drones themselves is very apathetic. He says he hopes his drones are used more to stop war, apparently. The international laws that are broken are immense and many. They go in and drone without any authorization. Specifically, this was about Pakistan. The Pakistani government's been sued twice now by an organization who's trying to get rid of the drones altogether. What am I thinking here? Breaking law. Breaking law, Pakistani law. I'm sorry. I'm trying to put it all together. The movie was just, it was too much, really. Basically, it seems like nobody really cares what America is doing. Everybody's afraid. No one wants to stand up and fight. The people fighting in Pakistan have no support. When they went to go protest and drive from a smaller country that's in between Pakistan and another country, they were actually met by the Pakistani army in tanks. So, what can be done? I mean, how can we stop this? How can we, decide decisively? I know impeaching Obama is one of the answers, but 87 other countries have picked up the drone programs themselves. And in the movie, they said that eventually seeing foreign drones over our own country would be commonplace.
The problem is simply one of courage. But it's not a matter of formal courage. It's a matter of understanding what the issues of life for mankind and in nations represents. And therefore, if you know what the facts are and you have knowledge of the evidence, and I have a certain amount of knowledge of these matters, you simply say, we're going to win that war. Now, that's not just a simple declaration that we are going to go out there and wave our arms and so forth and win this war. we're going to understand exactly what this war means and what the results would be if we caved in to the enemy. And therefore, if you cannot eliminate the enemy, defeat him, then you're not going to have anything. So therefore, you have to mobilize yourselves in order to motivate a larger population to recognize that what you're doing is right and essential. There's never been much of anything else in known history, history of warfare and history of struggle in general. That's been the truth. Now we have hoped and hoped almost futilely that we could bring about what we call peace. Now peace is not quiet. It's not quietness. Peace is the progress of mankind. And let me emphasize one thing that I emphasize repeatedly, which most people tend not to attach themselves to. Mankind, his greatest prospect lies in people who have died. It lies because they were better at science and society than anyone else. And what they did is their very existence gave mankind the means to bring mankind into a higher level. Now, for example, one of the greatest sources of corruption is the belief in being personally practical. People who think that life is based on being practical are cowards, and because they are cowards, they are also idiots. The purpose of mankind has always been, as the case of Kepler, for example, or as the case of Nicholas Akuza, models of this case, that if you stand for that, and you can convey the meaning of that, which is the future of mankind, a future which mankind has not heretofore achieved. And that is the highest goal of human achievement. Now, people are going to die. Human people historically always die, except for a few people who made it so far, a handful of people. Everybody else dies. The question is, under what condition do they die? And under what conditions do their circles of life represent? Do you represent, in your society, a power of creativity for the future of mankind, which mankind has never achieved before? And it's only when you get to the point that you understand that principle that you find yourself equipped with the ability to make the argument and sustain the argument which has to be done. This is not a sacrifice, because you're going to lose your life anyway. You don't live, you don't have a full life. Anybody who's 100 years of age or even my age, that's not really the issue. The issue is what the future of mankind represents. And the future of kind means what can you do, for example, in schools? What can you do in educational system to make the population that you are supposedly educating achieve a level of achievement in knowledge and effectiveness which mankind has never experienced before? Isn't that the great achievement? And when we look at the history of mankind, and we study the history of mankind, as I've studied the history of mankind at some length in the course of my life, it's the people who create a new opportunity, a more advanced opportunity, a corrected opportunity. And it's those people who mean something. people who go work to get by and pass tests and get rewards, they are not very important. The only very important people are those whose actions by themselves is a contribution to the improvement of humanity in general. And that's what we all have to concentrate on. That's the only thing that's really redeeming in terms of her history of mankind. Can you produce an achievement for mankind as a whole, which has never been achieved on that level before? And if you have a devotion to that goal and understand the goal, then you are very powerful. Because the history has shown that it's human achievement of that type which has been the motive force by which mankind has survived and achieved.
Thank you. I have one other thing on the matter. I was reading an article, and I found out that the 4 people in the movie, the 4 pilots, have had their bank accounts turned off, and they aren't allowed to have their money anymore. Yeah. What do you think can be done about that?
I think what we have to do is the same thing. We have to really change the laws to the real laws, back to the real laws of the United States. And that's the only solution. Forget the gimmicks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Sherry.
Yeah.
I was in this organization a number of years ago and had to drop out, and now I'm back. And the funny thing is, I was talking to Lynn. I says, oh my goodness, I've resubscribed to the EIR alert, and I have to make room. So I'm going through old binders. And naturally, I asked, I have all these old EIR reports. Would you like to have them as part of your library? You know? So I'm trying to get to bed every night before midnight, but winding up getting to bed at like 5 a.m. because what am I doing? I'm reading these old reports, and it's kind of funny because only the characters change. It's the same thing, only it's a little worse now. I go back to remembering the 50s and 60s, the Cold War, past McCarthyism. We grew up with Russia and America in this Cold War. And we were afraid that anyone in an insane moment that might pick up that red phone to initiate a nuclear holocaust. That this was on your mind. You were afraid. Well, now we have the same thing, only it's worse. And I do have a little African expression. Together the ants will eat the elephant. Oh, you like that one. I also saw in the 70s that there was a big push on for globalization, like this was a good thing. And the last EIR I read earlier this week, it's pointing to how Obama is pushing and pulling the president of France to bring him back into line, so to speak, and insisting, like the little bully in the playground, that we have to put Assad down. Wait a minute, just a minute. You are not president of the world, Mr. Obama. Where do you get off? Where does any official get off telling a sovereign nation its business and how to run its affairs? We'll help, we'll do that. Hey, we weren't invited into Syria. Get those 50 people out of Syria. You have no business there. You're breaking international law right there. The lawyer should be on him like flies on a pie. But we just hear about, read about these atrocities. I feel like Obama and people like him, if we think about this globalization thing, they're like little Hitler-like bullies running around trying to say, I'm in charge. It's all my decisions. No, you don't matter. You come on my side. If you don't, I can always kill you. And just all these things are running through my mind up to like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning as I'm going back and reading EIRs from 2002, 2004, 2005. And some of those sound exactly like the EIR I got Monday or Tuesday. So I don't really have a question. I'm 72 years old. I'm 21 years your junior. I've been on this earth a while just like you have. And it's like nothing changes. We just have these little boy bullies running around the play yard, forcing everybody to see their way. And if you don't agree with me, I'll kill you anyway. Well, I'd like you to make comments because I really don't have a question. I'm just sort of in a befuddled state of mind right now. I feel nothing has changed. Now, on this issue of getting rid of Obama, of course, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We, on an individual basis, what do we do to affect this? Do we start trying to be a bully and pull the arms of our congressmen, of our senators? Do we send letters to them? Do we send email? What do? We get on the White House phone and say, look, I'd like to see tomorrow. I'd like to see the sunrise. And do you have a special spaceship you're going to escape to another planet? I'd like to know where you intend on going. Within 7 days, a nuclear blast will send a poison wave in the air around the world. You're going to hold your breath. I don't think that'll work. The Earth is, we're gone. We're gone. So, please respond, sir, because I've just...
Okay, I'll do that. Look, I've been running this organization since its birth. I created this organization. And I've stuck to it because even though many of the people who were in my organizations at different times and so forth, they were not adequate. So what do? I make myself adequate. And I'm still fighting. I wouldn't give up life if I could avoid it. I'm stubborn. I'm stubbornly old. And people are around looking at me. What do? You running around still? Aren't you supposed to be in a graveyard someplace? Well, I'm not. And I'm still active. I sometimes was more frisky than I have been recently. But when you cross me in the right way, my friskiness becomes fulsome. And that's how it works. And I don't worry about anybody except me. I'm responsible for me and for what I can contribute to people around me. That's it. And I don't have any other standard. I appreciate people who achieve things. I'm happy when I meet it. I'm happy when they are intelligent, and I'm miserable when they're not. But I try to get over that. So the point is, in this point, every individual human being, in the final analysis, is totally responsible to themselves for the future of mankind. And when people understand that, as I do, that's the best. You have to have a standard of your own life, which is defined for the benefit of all mankind. And you will not compromise that for anything. And otherwise, if you don't do that, you become a failure. And I don't intend to be a failure. They may kill me, but I won't be a failure.
I like that answer.
Good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche. Rod from Brooklyn. And I'll just start right off. I've noticed that Chancellor Merkel of Germany is held fast to her policy of no nuclear energy after Fukushima. Fukushima. Even though her green policies failed completely, when we get Obama out of office, how will we deal with all the Congress, scientists, and other people screaming global warming, etc.? And when we talk to people, when I've talked to people, the reaction I get is that I'm a conspiracy theorist. And after all, everybody knows global warming is happening. And this is what I've been getting.
Well, I don't think you'd have to worry about that at all. The point is, we are an organization. We have a certain ability. If we want to conjure up that ability that we have, we can always do something better, a better contribution. Now, you're dealing with a society. What do you got? A bunch of people, a whole bunch of people. Huh? Now, the question is, can that bunch of people be on the positive side or the negative side in terms of the next operation? I have to worry about my responsibilities. And I wish that everybody else would do the same thing. Is devote themselves to what is an intelligent understanding of what should be their obligations. I try to do that. I hope that other people try to do that. And that's the only chance that mankind has. Now we get people who are of scientific achievers, real scientific achievers. Now, naturally, such people like that, or people of comparable abilities, are much more important for mankind than the other people. But what you have to do, you've got mankind is given. What you're trying to do is to induce people of all kinds of strata of people, to induce them to bring the best of themselves into contributions for the missions to be held. That's all it is. That's the only answer. I try to be the best I can. And I understand that principle. I also understand that what we depend upon is the development of children who are smarter than any other persons ever born. They are the ones with a creative force, like Einstein, a person of individual characteristics, a superior force of ideas. And that's what you want. You want more Einsteins, and you want more people like that who can fill in that kind of operation. And therefore, we want to change the school systems of the United States and get rid of the kind of school systems that have been dropped on the United States since the beginning. I could name a number of presidents, but a number of people. But Einstein is an example. Einstein's quality of genius was unique in history of science. Absolutely unique. And what we need more Einsteins. That is the person who can create the ability to foresee the efficiency element of the future, which is what he did. His life was devoted to that intention. And we don't have enough Einsteins. And what we need a school system which is dedicated to the principle of education for Einstein. To eliminate the garbage, to eliminate the crap, the fakery. To discover the future of mankind. And very few people, even in the history of physical science, have had much capability in that respect. So the problem is ours. We are alive. The problem is ours. The solution is, can we muster in ourselves those qualities of achievement which will be a serious contribution in the direction of the future of mankind, in the direction of Einstein. The model of Einstein can be a figure used to say, here's what we mean by the principle of genius. When the whole rest of the planet was missing on that objection. And look at the school systems that have no understanding of Einstein. None. Absolutely none. Deadheads. Huh? Deadheads with a crayon. Huh? A piece of chalk on a board. Or something. And that's the point. It is our responsibility to look inside ourselves, to recognize those principles to the degree we understand them, and to encourage the people around us to share that view. And then mankind becomes a unit. When mankind can share with other human beings this kind of concern for mankind, then you have a society that works. And right now, we have a very poor quality of performance. We have to change that. And we can do it. We can do it right here. We can do it right in this place, this premise. What we do today, we can make steps which will produce a better feature of mankind's behavior than before. And that's the best thing you can count on. You take the person of the poorest quality of development, of achievement, or the best, and you just keep pushing it. Don't let them up. Don't let them up. Make them go ahead to a higher level of achievement. Don't be practical. Practical people are stupid people. We don't want practical people. We may have to use them, but we really wish we didn't have to use them.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, for that. As a retired school teacher, this is Maggie here from New York, and I love teaching. And I found that often my special ed kids, they were so bright. They came up with ideas, and I learned how very much, well, Einstein was dyslexic, and this emphasis on reading is a killer. Can you think? Can you create? You like to move, you like to sing, and you have to hook them, and then they come up with the most amazing discoveries. It's really thrilling, and I watched my son grow, and this is a little fella who couldn't read. If I left him alone, he wouldn't have read till 6th or 7th grade. He's part Native American. His father was the same way. Grandma was the same way. They're brilliant people, but their eyes were jumping, I think, from the hunting in the forest. Now, I was very encouraged. Before I say what I really thought I was going to say, there's something else I wanted to bring up, and you may have read it in the New York Times. Wow. They're so scared. But, it's really done very well, and it has to do with, thank you, finally, removing the name of Woodrow Wilson from Princeton University, getting it off the buildings and the departments and what have you, and they're young student protesters there, and they, it says, performed a valuable service. And then they go on to describe what Woodrow Wilson did to the African American community, how they had come forth after walking out of the days of slavery, and there they were doing such fine work, working in the government, and so forth and so on, and this misery, son of a hoo-ha, came in with unapologetic racism, whose administration rolled back the gains that African Americans achieved just after the Civil War, purged black workers from influential jobs, and transformed the government into an instrument of white supremacy. And it goes on. And I was just so elated to see that the young people and that the Board of Trustees is considering it. And so I think I'll have to pay Princeton a call along with the Congress to tell them to please impeach Obama, a Harvard graduate. Thank you very much. Columbia University also. Now, one of the things that I have always tried to comprehend, why would it be that our nation with its nuclear navy would stand there with its fist raised against Assad? Syria, which had always been, in my estimation, one of the most together places where people were able to live. He was a Baathist, his father wasn't he. And then you had Muslim, you had thriving Catholic convents, Protestants there, and Jews even could live there. I couldn't understand. I kept saying to myself, why the input? Why the working together of Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Great Britain and the United States, of all things, to go against the man that, as far as I was concerned, did none of the things that they described that he did? And I am so grateful that in reading this past EIR, to read Mr. Ulf Sandmark's work. Wow, I said, there it is. This is what they did not want. He talks about President Assad's 5 C's vision and how back in the day of the tremendous empire that the Muslims had, didn't know that either, 6 million acres or something of land, it was actually 6 C's. And here we would have Syria being the hub of the crossroads of the world, of the continents there. And it's thrilling. And when I think of it, as I have quite a few Turkish friends, and that president just shot down the plane and allowed armaments to go through Benghazi that were, Gaddafi's armaments. And this is why, in my opinion, the president of our country is guilty of murder. He let those people die there. Chances are that they were against what was going on. And our soldiers are very aware that Gaddafi was protecting them from Al-Qaeda, our soldiers who were in Iraq. But here it is that these countries who could benefit from Syria being developed that way, Turkey especially, because they make such beautiful things that can be exported, not just to America, but all over the world. And I'm so grateful to have an understanding of that is what is going on, and that is why you keep emphasizing the British. And this is why we have to break this Saudi connection with the British, with the United States, so that we can rebuild Syria. And also, it would be a great hub for the Silk Road, it seems to me. So I just wanted to bring that up, and you can make comments about it, and I'll be eager to hear what you have to say.
All of it's quite interesting. What?
It's an echo.
What?
There's an echo.
Echo? Oh, it's an echo. Something was happening with the system, and so I didn't get. Heard everything you said, but the echo, what I tried to reply to, was jammed up by the echo system.
You now.
Fixed now.
Hallelujah.
I heard everything you said.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine, and the what you're saying is moving. I think what you said speaks for itself.
Next. Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Roof. Today I have one scientific question.
What? Yeah, go.
Scientific question. What is the antimatter?
What is what?
Is antimatter?
What is antimatter?
Oh, antimatter. Oh, well, I think that is something which is really obtuse. There is such a description of antimatter, but what is often you meant by it doesn't make much sense. There's some people who have a view of that matter which is relevant, but in general, the popular opinion is not relevant. And so the question of antimatter as a principle, that yes, there is such a notion of antimatter, but it's what is generally represented as the subject of antimatter is simply double talk.
That's the answer.
I'm not clear, sorry.
What? That was his answer.
Oh,
That's it.
thank you.
Right.
Alles klar.
I just want to get your spin on this. You don't have Einstein's because people have been trained to think in mathematics and not in concepts. Whereas Einstein, his ideas are his concepts. E is equal to mc squared. The energy is equal to the speed of light squared and mass, which is the concept. Time is not a definite thing. It depends upon the observer. What is your spin on that?
Well, I think the question of Einstein's work is just taking his principal works. He has certain benchmarks in terms of his stages of his development, and which led up to the end of his death. So Einstein is a unique figure, and I have almost, except some very exceptional cases, but Einstein is the only complete scientist that I would consider a true scientist. The problem is that with the beginning of Bertrand Russell's entry into the name of science, since that time, science in the 20th century went through a process of practice degeneration. That's what has to be said about it all. These were all practical people. They were mathematicians. And the worst thing you can get in science is a devoted mathematician. It's the worst thing that can be done to you. And therefore, if you don't have this, what Einstein understood, which is his approach by steps to make a ever deeper insight into what man's role is in the universe. And that's what his theme is all the way through. What is man's role in the universe? And if you want to take all the Einstein works that I know of, it all boils down to that issue. What the differences were between Einstein and his opponents were of exactly that nature. And what we need to do is we need to really emphasize Einstein and start over again with people who are a little bit better educated than the majority that we've had so far. But Einstein's method, his approach to life is absolutely unique. And other scientists, some of them had approaches to him. Some people have borrowed from him aspects of what he's done. But he's no man that I know of has had a fulsome realization of the quality of action which Einstein and his living characteristics had represented. He's just the genius, the leading genius on the records of books.
Good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche. This is Inola McGuire. How are you today?
I'm feeling pretty well. You're getting me also charged up, about all the things that some of the people here are doing.
I've been reading the EIR, and I must say they have been really informative. And I just want to thank you for your job that you have been doing for a very long time. And I think there should have been more people like you because
My enemies don't agree with that.
we're looking out for humanity, which is very good. But I have to get to think about my region, the Caribbean, and we have been shafted by the isms and schisms of, all different nationalities. But I think coming here and being here almost every Saturday has been good for me because I'm able to talk to other people who are Caribbean and let them know that there is someone who is a fair-minded person, and I hope one day I will get them to come to a meeting. But getting back to the Syrian situation now, I think it was a situation just waiting to happen because there are so many, people involved, and you have much people do not know about the core of the problem. So I think what you have been saying all the time surely made sense, and I'm looking forward for a response from you as to what you think can deviate World War III.
Well, I think one thing you're talking about Central and South America, that area in particular. And, one of my first heroes was Mexico. And I was the head of Mexico at that point, and I had collaborated with him. We had a meeting in his office, and we let loose things up. We really went at it, and we did an excellent job. We changed the whole Mexico system, improved it. He was a genius, and then he was crushed. Mexico was crushed. And in terms of South America and in the Caribbean area, I've seen similar cases, with some exceptions, but with similar cases of which have been crushed. Colombia has been crushed. Other parts of South America have been crushed, again, repeatedly. And we have a few that sort of got by with it once in a while. But most of South and Central America have been essentially crushed. Now, part of the problem comes from Wall Street and the British. That's generally the problem. Wall Street and the British are the enemies of Central and South America. If there's anything wrong with Central and South America in general, is to be blamed on the British and Wall Street. If you get rid of those two sins, you might have a better chance.
Okay, most of the English-speaking islands were once former British colonies, and they occupied the Lesser Antilles. And okay, but despite the British, other people tried to intimidate and use racism against the black people down there.
This is stuff which disgusts me.
It has happened.
Let's forget it. Let's get rid of it.
No, you can't, because some of the people are not that conscious. The level of consciousness, they're selling out. They're selling out.
All we have to do is we have to cooperate with each other. That's all. That's the only chance we have.
Okay.
It's what we can do to cooperate with each other and to get an influence on the process of society, which will enable us to be freed from some of the things that have been disgusting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche. Thank you for taking my question. My name is Michael Bucher. I'm local, New York. So I've seen on the news lately, and it's very disturbing, about this organization in Turkey, the Grey Wolves, and how this is a Gladio B operation that's been set up, and they're ready to move and do things. They got a truckload recently in Italy was intercepted with a bunch of shotguns in it, and they have bike gangs in Germany. They're all around. It seems to be something for concern. Do you know anything about that?
I know some things about some parts of these kinds of things. In general, actually, at my age and experience, I know there are a lot of things I know, but they're also in the process of bypassing a lot of things that I've skipped or not been brought in on on other things. So I'm not a universal person with applied on all subjects, but I do have a pretty good idea of what's going on in the world. I think that's what you can say. And the world is now, what I'm worried about all the time and concerned about is the things that I think I can do something about. And I pick out those things which I find that are both what I have strongest objections to, and what I think I can do something about. And so I concentrate on that. And the problem is there's a shortage of people but sometimes they come across for you. Sometimes, people in Germany, for example, who were sometimes disappointments to me. People in France who were disappointments. The recent case, the French case. Now, France has been a disgusting nation for a long period of time. But suddenly, when it got into this crisis of these terror range, and when they got into a connection with the issue of the relationship between France and the Mediterranean region, France came out and did something good, something better than they've done for a long period of time. And I appreciate that. I'm not satisfied with it, but it's much better than what I've seen before. And so my views on these kinds of things take those colors. There are a lot of things I have no access to or almost no access to. Some things that I've had great access to in a certain period, like my experience with Russia for a long period of time. And that was nice. But I have limitations. And I have to operate on the basis of limitations of a broad background of experience.
Well, thank you so much for that response.
How you doing, sir? My question is, why everybody's so scared to try to impeach Obama? My name is Joseph. Is because I believe, that we are scared to do that because of his complexion. His protection. If we try to get him out, everybody's going to think, why are we doing that? Because of what the color he is, not because of what's going on. So if this is what this country has become, that we're too scared to really say what's wrong with him and go after him for the crimes he's committing. But we won't do that because we might think, society might think, oh, we're going after him because he's African American. And I think so.
Well, things are not that simple. I have a responsibility, and I have probably much more knowledge because of my age than a lot of people in various parts of the world. But I have limitations too. And therefore, I don't think we can make simplistic characterizations of what the situation is. I think what we have to do is try to find the aperture in which we can create an influence to build something positive within society. I don't think we can, a lot of things don't lend themselves to becoming characteristic. But whatever we can do that's good, do it. And in terms of generalities, I don't really have much confidence in generalities. But I do have, the intention to improve. Yes, that I like.
By way of partially responding, Lynn, myself, to what was just raised, this is a report we got from Sean Stone. He wanted this raised to you because everybody's on their way to Paris now for the climate change conference. There's going to be 191 heads of state. So he wanted to make sure you are aware of this. There was a controversy this past February because a movie was released in England which portrayed, it was only a portion of the movie, but it portrayed Barack Obama as a member of a plot to kill 99% of the world's population. And so it's sort of a comic thing. What it is, there's a megalomaniac who sits down and he's shown speaking to Obama about global warming. And the megalomaniac is saying, look, I've checked, there's no way, the science all comes out. As long as you have people on the planet, you're going to have global warming. So all we can do is, I've got an idea, and it's to wipe everybody out. So the president agrees, okay? Everybody's got to be eliminated. He becomes part of the plot. So then basically the director and the writer of the film has insisted it isn't Obama, but the problem is, you can tell by the ears, the back of the head, and the vision of the White House in the background, it's definitely Obama. Right? So what happens is that he can't be trusted, though, so they put an implant in his head to make sure that he can be kept under control. So then Sean sent me, this is an excerpt from an actual review of this movie. It says, I'm quoting now, Barack Obama's head explodes because he's in on the supervillain's dastardly plot. Seriously, this is a thing that happens in this movie, and it's sort of surprising that nobody's made a big deal out of it, because it's pretty rare for movies to kill off a sitting president by suggesting he's in on an evil plot. Granted, the president is never named, but he's got the recognizable profile, and the brief impression of him is clearly meant to sound Obama-esque. And the sequence where his head and the heads of his Joint Chiefs of Staff explode is cartoonishly fun. But it's still weird to have the president, like a clear signifier of the actual president, involved in a plot to kill something like 99% of the world's population. And then it goes on to say no other people, all others are fictionalized, and the only other one that you can identify is the Queen of England. So I thought I'd put that in as a form of an intelligence report and a bit of a response to the question that you just got. Okay.
Okay, I think it's quite relevant. Have fun with it. It's all your own.
Hi, Lynn.
Yeah.
I'm relaying a question from Rick from Bergen County, who's tied up tutoring today. His question is the following. I have a sense that Obama is becoming increasingly hated within the population, that the perception is that ISIS is being supported by Obama because he is doing nothing. My question is, what position will Congress be in if ISIS attacks the United States, with Congress increasingly aligned with Obama by its failure to act on this?
Well, I think it's a moot point, because there's another approach that you have to take on this thing. Obama and what he represents has to be shut down. In other words, there are no intervening steps. Shut this guy down, because the defense of the human species depends upon accomplishing that effect. It's exactly what has to happen. You look at the history of Obama. Obama's stepfather was famous for mass murder. He was a colonel in the operation of mass murder in southern waters. And Obama himself was trained by the stepfather. He has the same characteristics known to us as the stepfather, and the actual mother of Obama, was also of the same quality. So what do you expect with such working material? Therefore, Obama must be removed from all control, political control, of all governments of the planet. All governments of the planet. He is a disease which must be closed off on. Now, we must never see anything like Obama appearing in political life ever again, because you can't trust him. He is intrinsically satanic. The only name you can give in history for Obama is that his quality is entirely satanic, literally satanic. And you don't want to cook him because it's also poisonous.
Okay, I guess we're now at our conclusion, Lynn, so I don't know if there's anything else that you'd, oh, I'd like to ask you this. So, of course, we're going to go in a new phase now in Manhattan because of the focus that we've now been given from you on the Obama matter. We'll be doing a lot of things on the music. And matter of fact, we have a major rehearsal tonight that Diane is going to be running, and John, who's here as well. So we're about to go into that, and I don't know if there's anything that you have in specific that you'd like to say, or are we?
No, it's an ongoing process, and let the process unfold as it wishes to.
All right, very good. So then that's it for us today. So I'd like everybody just to join me to say to you once again, thanks a lot.
Have fun.